How's everybody doing tonight? What's going on, y'all? Welcome into the Sports Arena. Of course, I'm your man, Eric Wilson, on a Monday night, fresh off the National Scouting Combine. And I know I'm not dressed as I normally am, but what can I say? When the job gets done and your team has the best record in the entire NFL, when your team handles their business and is consistent throughout the majority of the year, you are blessed with going to play in the biggest game on the biggest stage. So, you know what? Before anybody else gives it to me, I'll congratulate myself and say thank you to the Philadelphia Eagles for the second time in 5 years going back to the Super Bowl. But enough about me. Let me go ahead and get the fellas in here because we do, as always, have a jam-packed show. So much to talk about. Of course, my co-host just finished up doing Ball Don't Lie, took about a 30-second break, and now he is on the Sports Arena. My brother, the sports reporter without pay, Ray Lynn, is in the building.
What's up, sir? I see you in a minute, man.
And sir, let me just say this to start the show off tonight, man. I know it's going to be great to see you in exactly 1 week's time, but man, you were truly missed this week. I look forward to seeing you at the National Scouting Combine in the future, just as much, even though he is a pain in the butt. I want to see this man as well, my brother John Shear. What's up, fellas? How y'all been?
Got a dollar I could put in Ray Lynn's, or not Ray Lynn, Ty Ray's hat. Maybe it'll help him dry them tears.
I will say
crying.
Big guard, where's the big guard? The big guard, you know what? The big guard he's probably at Portillo's having another chocolate cake shake, which let me just say, the mouth of the West, I don't know what we're going to call him, ASU and Forks Up, Mike Caratenuto, introduced the big guard to Portillo's. And that's all that needed to be said. But even though Mike can't join us tonight, he has left us a message. And all it says is, my congrats to Eric's team. I'm scared. But we're going to start the show with this. So here is Mike Caratenuto.
So he's not here, and we still got to listen to him.
5 minutes long.
No, it's less. It's less than 3. So let's get Mike in here really quick.
What's up, E? This is my recording because I just found out I got a game tonight. But I'm here to congratulate your team, the Philadelphia Eagles, on their NFC Championship victory. Yes, they are the NFC champs, beating the 49ers, who, had to go to their third-string quarterback, down to their fourth, back to their third, who couldn't throw the ball. And that's my only pot shot. But, yes, the Eagles absolutely were wire to wire, that team in the NFC. And I said Jalen Hurts had to prove it in the beginning of the season, or before the season started. And yes, he did. They got the weapons. He definitely grew as a quarterback. And they are NFC champs. And a reason for that is because, my favorite side of the ball, the defense balled out all year. Number 2 in the regular season in yards allowed. Number 1 in sacks with 70. And then in turnover differential, plus minus, they were +8. They were 3rd in the league, right behind the Cowboys. Just so you know, my little silver lining here, because,
Okay, see, he was fine up until that point. I don't even want to hear the rest of it. He had to figure out a way.
Did he record that from a funeral home or something? Like, it started off like he was like doing a eulogy. Somebody died. What's up?
A piece of his soul died. Like that took a lot out of him to have to try to make a video giving props to the Philadelphia Eagles. Like a piece of him died while making that video. That's what it was.
And what makes it even more fun is that I get to spend the week with Mike in Arizona, along with you two gentlemen, as we do Media Week for Sideline Sports. It's going to be amazing. But fellas, let's get to the championship matchups and let's kind of do a recap on them. First, let's start with the AFC champs, the championship game between the Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And we're going to break down these two quarterbacks a little later tonight here on the Sports Arena. But, Ray, let me start with you, man, because when you looked at this matchup, what was some of your initial thoughts going into last night's game? And as the game progressed, I also want to hear from you just what did you see from both of these teams?
I'll start with this. Because people's perception become reality sometimes, and the way the media was starting to paint this picture. If you've ever heard me talk sports, I'm on record as saying I think wins and losses is just a very, very lazy way to judge quarterbacks. Like so many things go into winning, but the way people measure quarterback head to head is like this quarterback beat this quarterback, even though that quarterback doesn't play defense, he didn't rush, he didn't get a sack, didn't get an interception, and he just stood on the sideline while the game was ending. Right, like it's this quarterback beat that guy. And with Cincinnati winning the last 3. Far be it to say Mahomes needed this win more, right? Like he actually needed this win more for the reputation portion of it. Like that's all they was talking about on ESPN was if Joe Burrow beats Patrick Mahomes, if Cincinnati goes on to win, we have to evaluate Joe Burrow's last 4 years. He wins the national championship in college, gets hurt his rookie year, first 4 years as starter, he's in the Super Bowl, beating Mahomes to get there, beat him in the regular season, and then he beat him in the regular season last year, then beat him in the playoffs, then beat him again this year. He would have beat him and went to the Super Bowl. They was going to be calling him the best quarterback in the game, which I don't think that's relatively close. What I do think happened is Burrow might have firmly planted himself in that conversation of the guy who's next, which everybody was saying was Josh Allen. I know you was big on Buffalo this year, big on Josh Allen, and Burrow may have legitimately supplanted him, right? But then again, you go, what do they have in common? How did Burrow go home this year? At the hands of Mahomes, right? I mean, like, how did Josh Allen go home last year? At the hands of Mahomes. But then you flip it, right? Burrow beat Allen this year and Mahomes beat Burrow. Like, these are just 3 really talented quarterbacks that we got to look forward to playing for the next. The AFC is just going to be a gauntlet for the next, 7 to 10 years, right? What I didn't learn, reinforce what I already knew. We didn't do a who knew I knew segment, but John know what I told him at the beginning of the season about Patrick Mahomes, and here he is in the Super Bowl again. For people that thought that losing Tyreek Hill was going to matter, it didn't. He came into this game hurt. People thought it would matter. It didn't. Kelsey was banged up. He loses Mecole Hardman early in the game. People thought it was going to matter. It didn't. Like, this guy just goes out and gets it done. Like, and he showed heart. The last play, you could see he didn't want to move on that leg, and he did it anyway. And when they asked me, he said, man, sometimes just put it all on the line. Now he got 2 weeks to heal up and go out and try and win another Super Bowl against your Philadelphia Eagles. As far as Cincinnati, man, the way they started the season, stinking it up to be within 2 minutes. I mean, they had plenty of opportunities in that game. You had the late pick by Joe Burrow on a tip ball. They had the ball back after Kansas City couldn't convert off that. So they had plenty of opportunities. This team very well. We could be sitting here right now talking about them in the Super Bowl. And they had to go do it they had to go play Buffalo in Buffalo after the unfortunate situation of them not playing that game. So a lot of things didn't go their way for these playoffs. You know what I mean? Like with the whole situation, they was going to have to play neutral if it was Baltimore. They went out and stumped them 2 weeks in a row. They stumped Baltimore. I mean,
They didn't stomp Baltimore. The
They beat
Tyler
'em.
Huntley fumble was the deciding factor. Yeah.
True story, right? I think the biggest takeaway from all of this, from the playoffs altogether for the Cincinnati Bengals, the biggest takeaway is if somebody says Joe Burrow is the second best quarterback in the NFL, they might not necessarily be lying, right? Like I think losing in the AFC Championship, he gained more than anybody this playoff run because most of us consider Mahomes firmly the best, right? And you look at Cincinnati and you don't look at them as winning and Joe Burrow is just playing well. You look at them as winning because Joe Burrow is playing well, right? So I think he gained the most. Cincinnati don't have no reason to hang their head. They're around to stay. They for real. They started off. Megan picked them to win 2 games last year and they went to the Super Bowl, right? I basically he's in Mahomes territory now, right? Mahomes has been a starter for 5 years. He's been to 5 AFC championships, 3 of which have resulted in the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow got hurt his first year. In his 2 full years as a starter, he's been to 2 AFC championship games. So we'll see. And Chris Jones, Jesus Christ. Like,
yeah. We're going to get to the Chiefs in a minute. But, John, I want to hear from you about this. Give me your thoughts on the AFC championship game.
Yeah, I mean, we're all talking about, Joe, we're all talking about Asai playing, like making the mistake. I mean, nobody's talking about how bad Burrow played. I know the offensive line wasn't very good. I know they were all banged up. But, I mean, you can't really use it as an excuse. Burrow went out and made it to the Super Bowl last year with a line that was a lot worse. They hadn't gotten all these additions last year. They didn't have these additions. So the line was a lot worse last year when he had a record 9 sacks in a playoff game and he still beat Tennessee. They still went to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, nobody's really talking. Burrow's kind of getting off scot-free because of what Asai did, because all the bad officiating on both ends, not just for Kansas City, but also Bengals got away with some stuff too. But Burrow's getting off scot-free. He didn't play very well against the Ravens. Like, that wasn't a great game. Didn't play good at all against the Chiefs. Played great against the Bills, but 3 games, and he played poorly in 2 of them. And he's getting off scot-free, and we're like, yeah, he's in Mahomes territory. I mean, he might be, but he also didn't have a very good playoffs. Like, he was the reason that they lost yesterday. If Burrow played anything close to what he played against Buffalo, that game's not even close yesterday. Because Casey just, it wasn't like Casey was blowing him out. It wasn't like Casey was like world beaters offensively. The Bengals just hung around because the defense did enough to keep them in the game until Burrow and company got the lucky fumble where, Mahomes' ball slipped out of his hand. That turned the tide of the game because then they went down and got the touchdown. They were able to finally tie it up. But they weren't able to do anything until that turnover. Like, they didn't do anything offensively until that turnover, and then they finally got going. But even then, they didn't get going. I mean, unless it was Jamar Chase making a miracle catch on 4th down and double coverage, like Joe Mixon really didn't do much. T. Higgins really didn't do much. Tyler Boyd really didn't do much. There really wasn't that much offensively, and you saw it in the Buffalo game. You saw all these guys going crazy. And it's like Buffalo's a great defense. You expect them to do the same thing against a Kansas City defense. It's not nearly as good as Buffalo's, but yet they laid an egg. So it just didn't make sense to me why Burrow's getting off scot-free, but, Asai's getting all the blame in this. The refs are getting all the blame. You got to give Joe Burrow the blame too. I mean, they talked all week, Burrowhead. The Bengals talked all week, and then they didn't back it up. And the Kansas City's defense played extremely well too.
Right. But however, within, that last window, I know what you're saying, John, that people are going to blame Osai for, pushing Patrick Mahomes when he was already out of bounds and causing them to move the sticks 15 yards.
And
however,
just so I'm on the record, I don't think that should be called. I get the penalty. I understand it. But if you look at that play, dude barely touched him. Like, I understand you can't touch him out of
But
bounds,
that's
come
how,
on.
unfortunately,
No, I
John, whether we
know.
like it or not, that's how
I
the game is
know.
played.
But we all look at that. We're
we
like,
don't. Okay, John, we don't make the rules.
No,
Hopefully,
I
at this
know.
owners meeting come up this spring, maybe they'll look at it differently. Maybe they'll change the rules. However, as it currently stands right now, that unfortunately, whether we like it or not, and I agree with you, I don't like the call,
right, but like when a Hail
but
Mary
it was the
happens, Eric,
call that was made.
right, but when a Hail Mary happens, like the refs swallow their whistles on Hail Marys, even though we know that there's a million pass interferences on the defense on Hail Marys at club guys. But typically the refs swallow their whistles on the close things at the very end because they kind of let the game decide itself. That I thought it was, and Mahomes did a really good job at selling that. When he went to the ground, like he was acting like a soccer player. He was acting like LeBron James against the Celtics. Like, just went full blown, And I mean, I can't blame him. It got him to the Super Bowl, but I mean, he deserves an Emmy for that.
Listen, when I look at this game, all right, and let's be very clear, I watched this game with a lot of intensity because I needed to see who the opponent of my Philadelphia Eagles was going to be in Arizona. What I looked at and what I saw was two teams that, on a lot of levels, and this is just me, on a lot of levels, there were just differences as much as there were similarities. And what I say by that is simply this. To Ray's point, you now have to put in the conversation Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. You have to put those three guys in the conversation as top quarterbacks in the entire NFL. Okay? Now, listen, I still, even though he lost, I still will take Josh Allen. However, what I cannot ignore anymore and what I cannot just sit here and let go without acknowledging is the fact that both of these guys, both Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow, just find a way. That's what they do. They find a way to get the job done. It ain't got to be pretty. It ain't got to be nice. It ain't got to be anything that we've seen before. But at the end of the day, a W is a W. Okay? And so for me, when I look at this, I do look at the defenses. And what I'll say to you is this. Cincinnati's defense should have pressed a lot more on Patrick Mahomes.
It's well said.
However, they didn't. For whatever the reason was, they did not make that move. Now, what I can tell you is when I look at Kansas City's defense, they were like, oh, no, we know we can get to this guy. Right to your point, Chris Jones, it was like, bro, he should have been playing on the offensive side of the Cincinnati Bengals because that's how close he continually was getting to Joe Burrow. I was looking at this and the fact that it came down to a field goal, which is what I anticipated it being. Even if you take that call, the roughing the passer call and the 15-yard, even if you take that away, I still feel like Mahomes and company marching down the field would have been in position to win that game, even if that call never happened. But it did. It got them closer. Game over. Okay? So I look at it and I'm like, I know what I'm expecting to see Super Bowl Sunday. Now, listen, Andy Reid, if anybody knows Andy Reid, it's me. Okay? 4 NFC championship games, 1 Super Bowl, continually winning the NFC East year after year after year after year after year, making a case for coach of the year every year, taking guys like Nick Foles and Michael Vick and Mark Sanchez. No, that was Chip Kelly. Sorry. Just elevating his players to that level. So I already know what Andy's going to bring to the table. I'm hoping and I'm fortunate that Nick can do the same. Ray, what did you want to say before we move on to the NFC Championship game?
I just want to make sure that I clarify when we say we putting those other guys, we putting them all in the same conversation. As long as people know, for me, Joe Burrow has ascended himself into the conversation with Josh Allen, not with Patrick Mahomes. Like I still think Patrick Mahomes is just on a level beyond everybody else. I will say this to this comment. This comment right here. No problem with that. 0, right? I don't agree about it. Whatever. I'm okay with that. This comment right here. Fans are so funny and fickle, right? If we recall last season, the entire world was in an uproar that a coin flip decided who went to the AFC Championship.
Yep.
Do we remember this? Do we remember Josh Allen going down drive after drive, finding a guy that we had never heard of,
Yeah.
and Gabriel like
that's not
we all
Allen's
remember
fault.
this. Right.
It's not Allen's fault, right?
And I to my point earlier about wins and losses being a lazy way, I used last year's playoffs, right, as a perfect example of when you watch San Francisco and Green Bay play in that bad weather. Both quarterbacks were atrocious, but somebody had to win. And then you watch Mahomes and Josh Allen, both they were phenomenal. Somebody had to lose. Like, we watched that game, we knew whoever got the ball was going to lose. So coming into this season, everybody was on the Buffalo train. They made some big moves in the offseason. And for the first 7 games, it looked correct. It looked like nobody's going to touch Buffalo. And then Josh Allen got hurt. Nobody talks about it anymore. And he was never the same the rest of the season. And now everybody's on the Josh Allen is overrated. I've seen people comparing him to Jim Kelly and all kind of stuff. Like Josh Allen, I don't know how he's another Phillip Rivers. And just last year,
that makes no sense. They're not even close to the same.
He was a coin flip away from being in the AFC Championship game. Like, I just don't like. Fans are just so ready to destroy people, and it's like, first off, Josh Allen been a full-time starter with a legitimate team that you felt he can contend with for 2 years, this year and last year. Before the arrival of Stefon Diggs,
agree.
Before the arrival of Stefon Diggs, right?
Yep.
The Bills were still a laughingstock. He was in year 1, 2. He didn't get to the same fast start that Burrow and Mahomes did. But as of last year, he arrived. He's an elite quarterback in this league. Like, this overrated thing after 2 seasons, he loses in the divisional round both years, and now he's overrated. That's unbelievable to me.
And
like,
the funny thing is,
unbelievable.
The funny thing is, Allen has a playoff loss because of the 13-second thing, which is not his fault. Not his and not Gabe Davis's fault. They still lost. Joe Flacco has a playoff road win because I think he has the most playoff road wins in the history of the NFL, right? Any quarterback in the history of the playoffs, most road wins for a quarterback. He has a playoff win at beating Tom Brady where he threw 34 yards in a playoff game. He still gets a win for that. Like, wins and losses, you have to have context behind them, because if a guy throws 34 yards in a playoff game and he didn't win you the game, he didn't do anything, but he still gets a win, and you give him that, oh, he has the most road wins in playoff history. Like, you have to have context. It's absurd to even say Josh Allen's overrated. I hate the Bills, and I know if he wasn't on the Bills, that's a 4-win team. Like, no offense, but that team just isn't the same. He's the absolute heart and soul of that team, of that city. Without Josh Allen, that team is nothing. It's not that they're not talented.
As we've said, when 80% of your offense is run through your quarterback, yeah, he is the primary reason.
Yep.
All right, really quick, let's switch over to the NFC Championship game, because this was a game that was truly unexpected.
I don't want to talk about the NFC Championship with you. I don't want to talk about this with you, Eric.
Is Big Guard here? Where's he at? Big Guard.
We got to sit there and watch you with this childish. No, come back. Sitting there with that sheepish, childish grin on your face. Like, we don't want to do this with you. This first off, listen. You know what? As a matter of fact,
he deserves this.
We're going to flip the script. This is 100% unscripted. I am the co-host. I am going to jump in the driver's seat as we talk about the NFC Championship game, because I want to let Eric shine. I want to let him talk his stuff. I don't want him to sit back and be reserved as a host. I want him to rub it in for wherever Tyree is watching. I want him to rub it in for Mike Patton wherever he's watching. All these 49er fans, I want you to talk your stuff. Let's talk about the NFC Championship game. Before I get to E, I'm gonna come to John. Let's start with the obvious question. Is it a different game if Brock Purdy doesn't get hurt?
Nope.
Let me rephrase that. Different result. We know it's a different game because they clearly just couldn't throw the ball.
Well, of course. They couldn't even throw the ball.
You don't think it changes the result?
Not at all. I mean, you saw what Hassan Reddick did. Tried telling you, Eric, Defensive Player of the Year, Hassan Reddick, nobody pays attention to this guy. And what does he do? He absolutely wrecks the game on the very first drive at midfield for the Niners and sends them to the Super Bowl. The first drive that the Niners went out there. Didn't even finish the drive. Purdy didn't. And that ended the San Francisco 49ers season. That's what Hassan Reddick does. Josh Johnson came in, and guess what Hassan Reddick did? He did it again because he's so good. Now, I don't think this game would – I think it would have been closer because obviously San Fran could have ran their offense without the guy that they had first-team reps all weekend. Then you have Josh Johnson, who he didn't have the first-team reps. Like, you're asking a guy to go and play the Eagles on the road in the NFC Championship, who had arguably the best defense in football year, and he had 0 first-team reps, and he's the 4th-string quarterback. Like, that's not fair to Josh Johnson. So of course the game would have been closer, but I don't think the result would have been any different. Philly's just a better team. I think Purdy would have gotten killed either way, but at least they would have been able to try and run their offense. It was a done deal once he went out because you're putting in Josh Johnson, who's a fourth string.
You know, at one point in the game, I say this may be the first time in my life that I wish we would just saw a phone booth and this man would have just came walking out and it might have changed things. But it did not happen. You know, it may be the first time that 49er fans was going, where's Jimmy G? That really was for my guy in the comments, man, Marcus Shaw. Like, he's a huge 49er and Jimmy G supporter. But I said going into the playoffs, I really thought Brock Purdy was their best chance to win. I saw him do things in that offense that Trey Lance or Jimmy G didn't do. I don't know if it changes the outcome. Obviously, it changes the game. When you just looked and it was like they just weren't like, I'm sure Philly knew. We knew as fans watching, the announcers knew, okay, he can't throw the ball. This game is over. And they were at that point, they were down. That doesn't change the fact that Philly just dominated the game from start to finish. They absolutely dominated the game from start to finish. And as a matter of fact, I think it is very worth it. Y'all got me looking. We're going to find it. It's about that time.
Swung on and hit him in the air to deep left center.
I will preface this, ladies and gentlemen, by saying this is unscripted. Eric didn't know it was coming, but this is his team, and they're now in the Super Bowl, right? And he would tell y'all, so I'm going to tell y'all for him. He's just a loudmouth with an opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to y'all Mr. Eric Wilson.
My brother Raylan, I thank you. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Eric's Rant. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and look in this camera and lie to y'all. I am an extremely, extremely happy man today because I've asked my team to do one thing, and that's be consistent. I've also asked them to beat the Cowboys, but you know what? That got taken care of for me, so I didn't have to worry about that one. Look, man, we're in the playoffs. No, I'm sorry. We're in the Super Bowl. We're going back to Arizona. And, you know, John and Ray talked about the team and what they did, but I'll speak to the defensive side of the ball. The defense is the reason why we won this game. What do we always say? Defense wins championships. Well, they showed up yesterday. And whether it was Brock Purdy or whether it was Josh Johnson or whether it even was at some point Christian McCaffrey, it didn't matter. Kyle Juszczyk could have came out there. Hassan Reddick, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, CJ Gardner-Johnson, and the entire defense was the reason. Jalen did not have a great game. Let me be very clear about that. Jalen did not have a great game. Our run game, Miles Sanders, my friend Miles from We Are Penn State, had a phenomenal game. Followed it up by Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell. Yeah, I forgot about the run game that Philly had, huh? You were too busy worried about Devontae Smith and the catch. Thank you, sir, for that. And then, of course, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, and the rest of the crew. But here's the one thing I need everybody to understand. And you know what? It goes shout out to the man, the great Kobe Bean Bryant. The job's not finished. The job's not finished. I'm not going to sit here and speak ill of anybody who has doubted my team yet because the fact of the matter is this. We now have to go and win it all. It means nothing to be second place. There are 30 teams at home. I'm not trying to be the 31st. We're still on a mission. So, yes, I take into consideration the fact that my team is, in fact, in the Super Bowl, the second time in 5 years. But I will not sit here and gloat or give praise or do anything to anyone or anybody because we are still playing for something bigger. We are still playing for something better. And more importantly, it's not over. Patrick Mahomes is one of the greatest quarterbacks we have seen in our lifetime. And you know the old saying, shout out to Ric Flair, to beat a man, woo, you got to beat the man. See you in Arizona.
Unmute me. I was muted. I'm back unmuted. He don't want to gloat. I'm going to gloat for him. The hell with y'all. All y'all 49er fans. Big Guard, Marcus Shaw in the comments, Mike Patton. Y'all was all talking crazy. And those other NFC teams was talking crazy. Talking about Philly ain't played nobody all year. They ain't my team. I would just like to say that with their quarter, all year we talked about Tua Tagovailoa and what Miami was while he was under center. Well, guess what? With Jalen Hurts under center, Philadelphia was 14-1. Let's talk about it. They only lost when he wasn't playing. So at what point do we stop not giving his team their props. Y'all said all year they didn't play anybody. They beat every team that they put out in front of them. Then they got to the playoffs, and y'all thought it was going to be different. And they out here just smoke checking teams, kicking ass and taking names. What's going to happen in the Super Bowl don't matter. All them NFC teams that y'all was talking about, what's going to happen, and we going to do this, and this was going to happen in the playoffs. No, y'all all eat some of this humble pie, especially 49er fans. Don't talk to me about the quarterback getting hurt because y'all got all these weapons. I hear all year about Deebo Samuel and George Kittle's looking like the best tight end again. We went and got McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk. I done told y'all how sick I'm so tired of hearing Brandon Ayuk name. Y'all say it like he's some kind of star. No, let them have it, E. Come back on camera and let every single one of them have it. If your team losing the Super Bowl, guess what? They there. They can't say that. Talk to them.
Ray,
I'm gonna be
Ray, listen to me. I have to, because you know what? What I'm not going to sit here and do is give anybody the satisfaction of coming back to me on February 12th and or 13th and saying, well, you went to the dance, but you couldn't get the job done. You see, I have to. The only people who I will take a moment and say, you know what, I told you so, were those Cowboy fans who hated and doubted on me. For those people who were at the tweet weeks 9 and 10 when we were undefeated before we lost to the Commanders, sitting here saying, oh, that team's going to fizzle out at some point. Those are the people that I want to speak to for a moment and simply say this. How you feeling now? Because everybody wants to talk. I'm not about that business right now, because my job's not finished. Oh, trust and believe, my brother. I will say this to you. On the February 13th episode of the Sports Arena, when we are live, when the Philadelphia Eagles have won their second Super Bowl in 5 years, and I get to add to my tattoo the date and the score of our second championship, then you will truly get an Eric Trent from me. But until that time, I haven't done it all year. I'm not about to start now.
Hey, let me respond to this real quick. And I'm on here talking stuff, man. I have a good time. But this is one of my guys, Marcus Shaw.
That's a silly comment.
Real 49er fan. I'm going to tell you this, man. I don't know about the anybody thing, but what we have seen over the past few years with the San Francisco 49ers, we saw right before the ascension of Colin Kaepernick, we saw Alex Smith having his best years as a football player under center with the San Francisco 49ers. And then Kaepernick came along, and they went to the Super Bowl. And then we saw Jimmy G come along, who by any stretch of the imagination is not an elite quarterback. I know he's your guy. You give him a lot of props, and he wins games. He doesn't go out there and lose them. And then we saw them start the season with Trey Lance, which I think that was a disaster waiting to happen anyway. But then Jimmy G gets hurt, and y'all go to Mr. Irrelevant, a guy who was the last pick in the NFL draft. I won't say just anybody can win, but they did prove that with Brock Purdy, a guy with the last pick in the draft, those guys were in the AFC Championship game, man. That says a lot. Like NFC Championship game. So I'm not going to say like they can do it with anybody, but like when you say they can do it with anybody, understand? Well, you need a guy who actually plays the position, right? Like once you lost everybody that could throw the football, well, you know, your offense becomes pretty one-dimensional and predictable, and the game is over. So if it was me coming into next season, in fact, let me throw that question around, E. At the start of the 23-24 season, who would be the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers? Or is
That's
that
an
next?
excellent.
We have a what's next question, don't we?
Yeah. But more importantly, we have that question: who's going to be the guy next year between Trey Lance, Jimmy G, or Brock Purdy? Who's going to be the guy? So since we going there, let's go there. Honestly, in my opinion, and this is how I feel, Mr. Irrelevant, you got 8 games on him. You don't have a year's worth of tape. He came in and he won for you. I say Jimmy G, if he wants to remain a backup for the San Francisco 49ers, so be it, because you know what you have in him. Trey Lance, I'm sorry, you are just not the guy. Your health is going to be the reason why you are no longer playing in the NFL, at least not for the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, that's how I feel, because he's continually injured.
What do you mean?
Scratch your head all you want, John.
He played
scratch
like
all your head all you want.
1.5 games, and the first one was in a monsoon.
John,
what are you talking about?
John, quarterbacks find a way to remain relevant. When Mr. Irrelevant becomes relevant, that is the guy. I say you roll the dice and keep moving with Brock Purdy.
And guess what? He probably isn't ready at the beginning of the season, because he's not going to – I mean, this injury takes him into training camp. And so if you're injured with this type of injury going into training camp, it's going to take a while to rehab. You're going to miss all of the offseason activities. You're a last pick in the draft guy. It's not like you're a talented guy in regards to like being a Trevor Lawrence where you could just say, okay, I can rehab and I got all the talent. No, you're Brock Purdy, and the reason you're picked last is you're not quite as talented as those guys. So when you're coming off this type of injury, you're already fighting for a job. It's not even close to guaranteed that you're getting the job back, because if San Fran trades up trades all the capital to get Trey Lance, and they've only seen him not even 2 games, basically, like, you have to see what you have in him. You can't give up all that capital and just say, well, he's no longer the guy
that's contract.
But exactly, you can't give up Trey Lance this fast, give up on him fast.
I'm
you haven't seen enough of him.
Okay, well, guess what? What I've seen from me is enough for me. I say you roll with Brock Purdy. If Jimmy G wants to stay on and be the backup because you have a solid backup guy who can get the job done and who doesn't mind being in that position.
You're the same guy that said that you're the same guy that told everybody, hey, Jalen Hurts, give him time, blah, 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 the last year thing, all that stuff. When we all knocked Jalen Hurts last year, you're like,
when did I give Jalen Hurts time, John? When did I say give Jalen Hurts time?
He got his ass kicked versus Tampa Bay, and you want us to give him time.
Did I say give Jalen Hurts time, John? When?
You said you would be back.
I said he would be back, but I didn't say give him time.
Yeah,
if he didn't prove it this year,
brother can do.
John, if he didn't prove it this year, I'd have been calling for his head this year.
Okay, but you gave him a chance. Like, why not give Trey Lance an opportunity? He really hasn't. We haven't seen this guy play a full season.
All right.
You don't know what he can do.
I don't see it. I'm telling you right now. The question is, who is the guy? My answer is Brock Purdy.
I would say this.
I think if you have 3 quarterbacks, you have none.
I don't disagree with that, right? Like, you have to have a guy. You got to settle on somebody. And I would say this much. I think he said if Jimmy G wants to be a backup in San Francisco, he's too talented for that. He's a veteran. And I don't think at this point in his career yet he's a clipboard holder. There are too many teams who probably feel like they're a quarterback away. A team like Tennessee, who I think they're done with Ryan Tannehill, and neither one of those guys, like Malik Willis, didn't look like people thought he was going to look. Green Bay may be in the market for a quarterback. The Colts are in the market for a quarterback every single summer. There are going to be teams that, and who knows, Denver may be in the market for a quarterback, right?
I mean, the Raiders in the market.
Well, that's if Carr really goes anywhere, right? But again, there are plenty of teams that are talented that you may feel are a quarterback away. And if Jimmy G has that opportunity, he's probably going to take it. I don't think he's going to want to be a backup.
Of course he is. And let me just really quick, Ray, really quick. I'm sorry. Let me just answer this question. Jamar, when did I give Jalen time? What I said was Jalen, listen, his first start was 4 games. What did he go? 1-3? His second season, this team was a under 500 team, came down here to Tampa and faced Tom Brady. So at that point, I was like, okay, you got us to the playoffs. You elevated who you were to that next level. I wanted to see it this year. This was a prove it year. And what did Jalen do? He went out there and showed who he was. Trey Lance, to me, just ain't the guy. Right, wrong, or indifferent. He just is not the guy. Brock Purdy, to me, is the guy. And if Jimmy wants to go somewhere else and make that money, then so be it. But I'm telling you right now, Trey Lance should not, in my opinion, be the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers come next year.
And I would say this much, man, with all those weapons that we always talk about in San Francisco, right? The guy who made that offense look like we thought it could look was Brock Purdy. Like, I'm sitting here looking. He comes in as a starter, 210 and 2 touchdowns, 217 and 2, 234 and 2, 284 and 2, 332 and 3. Like, and we saw the resurgence of George Kittle with this guy in the center. Right? For me, Brock Purdy would be the guy. If I'm Jimmy G, the ship is sailed anyway because they started this season with Trey as the guy. So it's pretty clear that the organization don't believe in Jimmy, right? For me, it has
Jimmy's an insurance policy. That's exactly what he is.
Who's always hurt.
He's an insurance policy because if you look at his record, what does he do when he plays for San Fran?
He wins. He wins.
Why does he win? Yeah, he does. And why does he win? Because of that offense, because of the weapons. You bring in a Christian McCaffrey. You already got Debo. You already got George Kittle. You got Brandon Ayuk. You've got an offensive line that protects. Okay.
And I, you know what's funny? Because I thought it was going to be the Super Bowl again. No disrespect to your Eagles, and they
that's
did what
fine.
they did, right? I thought
Right.
San Francisco was going to get there again, but if you think about the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, right, when the rubber meets the road and stuff hit the fan, you do want a guy who can just go out there and just take. I mean, we watched it. We watched Mahomes take over that Super Bowl, and you watched and you knew Jimmy can't match that. You know what I mean? Like he can't match what that guy's doing. And I think that's the biggest problem when you have a quarterback who's a quote unquote, as we call, game manager. Even if we want to talk about what people thought Tua Tagovailoa was, what people thought Jalen Hurts was, and both those guys had very, very good years to, I think, elevate their stature in this league to above average, borderline elite quarterbacks, right? Like those guys are very talented, and you think you can win with those guys. They aren't game managers. You think you can win because of them. And I think with Jimmy G, it's always been we can win in spite of him and not because of him. And I think that's a problem. Like to be a starting quarterback in this league and the team just wants to win in spite of you. Like we'll win with him, but it's not because of him.
Well,
No,
we
you need
said
a guy
that
that
about Carson Wentz when he played for the Indianapolis Colts. That was the one thing that, rest in peace, our brother Alex Fleming said. Indianapolis will win in spite of Carson Wentz, not because of Carson Wentz.
Well, and
So,
I
mean,
to this day, I believe y'all don't win that Super Bowl if he's still the starting quarterback. I genuinely believe that.
I feel the same way.
That
Someone
Jamar
asked
Bell
me.
is dropping fire in the comments. I'm just saying, man. That Trey never played with Christian. I mean, that's true. Trey Lance never got Christian McCaffrey. I mean, that's
get
kind of
that.
a nice safety blanket to
get
have
that.
I
in
would
your
say
pocket
this though. Hold on. Now let's go back to the
instead
San
of Elijah
Francisco.
Mitchell.
We talking like Elijah Mitchell just some
No,
bum.
but
Like you
it's
see
not
what
even close. It's not
Yeah,
even
but you
close. Christian McCaffrey's not even.
we're not talking about it not being close. We saw Jimmy G with these same guys win games last year, right? Trey Lance came in and this team was atrocious to start the year. Jimmy G came right in and they started winning games. So let's not put it on because
They
he
were
didn't
3
play.
and 4. They were 3 and 4 with Jimmy G. Remember that? And everybody was questioning him. They were 3 and 4.
How many games did Trey Lance
They were
play?
3 and 4. He got hurt, I believe, in the second game. They lost the first game in that monsoon to the Bears, and then he got hurt the second.
Jimmy G went 7-3 this year. Jimmy G went 7-3 this year. Yeah, but he went 7-3.
And he got hurt against Miami.
He wins.
Yeah, so Jimmy, they were 3 and 4 at one point. He won 4 in a row after that.
Yeah,
I'm simply saying, right? Yeah. And to this comment right here, Brock can't match them. We don't know yet. Right? We don't know yet. He hasn't had to. He hasn't had the opportunity to. The one game where we thought he might have had to go out and match somebody would have been this game against Jalen Hurts, and he gets hurt to start the game. So we don't know. But I've seen this guy go out and play and put up some big numbers and have some big moments in big games. And like, again, I saw him do things that I don't think Jimmy G can do. Right? Like I just don't. So, and we've seen it time and time with Jimmy G. I don't know. I'm not sold on Trey Lance. All I know is what I've seen from this kid. He ain't lost a regular season game yet.
But he got
and was in the AFC. He was in the NFC Championship game.
He got hurt.
Yeah, he got hurt.
This is the whole.
He's
this
a
is
fraud.
the whole
He got his ass kicked.
Oh my God.
We saw what the
All
Eagles D line was going to do to him, expose
John.
him. And guess what? Have you ever watched pro wrestling where they're like, "Hey, guess what? We're going to make it a part where you get disqualified and you don't lose your belt, but you also don't look bad, so nobody loses." Brock Purdy just doesn't look bad because he got hurt and he got off the hook.
John, I know sometimes you come on a show. Please bring it back. I know sometimes you come on here and you do this antagonist thing where it's like, I'm gonna be outside the box and I'm gonna talk crazy or whatever. But like, you can't say a guy in the NFC Championship game is being exposed. He got there. Like we were just talking about Mahomes being in 5 straight. We were just talking about Burrow and his 2 years as a starter being there, right? Like getting there has to matter for something, because if you lose early, you lose in the wild card, they're gonna talk about you crazy. You lose in the divisional, like Josh Allen has done the last 2 years, they're gonna talk about you crazy. So a guy's in the NFC Championship game and like he gets hurt, he ain't played bad, but he's exposed. Come on, you gotta be better than that.
And
man.
Mark
Like
Sanchez played in 2 straight AFC Championships, but what happened to him? Like, come on, man. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're this great quarterback because you got to the NFC or AFC championship. Mark Sanchez was the 2, never went to a Super Bowl, and then his career just died. Like, don't give me that. Like, you have to have context behind this. Of course he got there. Look at the team he has around him. If you put that guy on the Lions, he ain't going nowhere. If you put him on the
first off,
Browns,
okay.
he ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
Like,
Come on, we
man,
will not
don't do
disrespect
that.
the Lions today.
Right.
We're not disrespecting
Yes.
the Lions today. We're
Come
not.
I'm
on,
just
John.
saying,
You better. No,
he can't
because
do
you
what
better than
Jared
that,
Goff
John.
did. He can't do what Jared Goff did.
Who said? How do we know, John? You're sitting here saying that Brock
He's a
Purdy in a
fraud.
different system
He's a
is not
fraud.
gonna have the same results. Do we know that? No. What I'm simply saying to you is, look, we always talk about the eye test. We always talk about the analytics. We always talk about everything here on the sports arena. What I'm saying to you is this: what Trey Lance has shown me in the minimal amount of time that we have seen Trey Lance play is that I don't think he's built to be a quarterback in the NFL. Okay. With Jimmy G, I know what I'm getting. Jimmy G under center can get you victories. I got it. I understand it. But you know what? I think if Jimmy G goes somewhere else, he also would be successful. What we saw in Brock Purdy, and remind you, John, this is the same Brock Purdy that went up against a top defense every single week. Okay? He was the guy on the other side having to go up against Nick Bosa and Wagner and the rest of that crew every single week. So you don't think he was tested? Granted, practice is not the same as the game. I understand that, and I understand that. I get that very well. However, you are going to see things that is going to help you be better prepared for when you actually do play in the real situation. All right? The question that we asked at the beginning of the show tonight here on the Sports Arena was simply this. If Brock Purdy would have played, if he was healthy and his arm, hand, finger, UCL, whatever it is, would not have been injured, would the outcome have been the same? And you're saying no, Philly would have still beat up on him. And yes, John, I do agree with you. And it's not from a fan standpoint. It's based on what I saw. But what I do say to you is this. Brock Purdy, should he come back during training season? Should he make a speedy recovery, which I hope he does?
Of course.
I feel he is going to be the guy that this team is going to look at. And I think John Lynch and the rest of that crew is going to be like, look, this kid, when nobody else wanted him, we gave him a shot and he produced for us and got us all the way to the championship game with the weapons. And that goes to Ray's point about Kyle Shanahan, a coach who should be the coach of the year because he just implemented anybody he wanted to at that quarterback position and was like, yo, we're going to make this work.
Is there any chance that Brock Purdy ever beats if he has to go to the Eagle, if he has to go to the NFC Championship 3 years in a row at Philly, does he ever have a chance of beating them? I don't think so.
He had a chance.
Like, I don't think he has any chance whatsoever in hell of beating an elite team, an elite defense. I don't think he's that guy. I don't think he's good.
Can we stop calling my team elite because I don't feel they're elite just yet? Can we stop? Can we please stop calling my? No, I'm being serious. Can we please stop calling my team elite?
And your offensive line are the best in football. When you win the trenches on both sides of the football, it's really hard to beat that. That's where you win in football games.
John, I'm asking you as a brother and as a fan, I'm asking you to stop calling my team elite because they're not elite. Okay, they're not. Because if they were elite, they would have won multiple championships. And the fact is, it took us 5 years to get back here.
We're talking about
and it took a combination.
I just don't know how we watch a guy go out and smoke check Seattle. Absolutely smoke check him. With a great coach in Pete Carroll. Then he goes out and he beats Dallas as well, who was a very good team all year. And then he gets to the NFC Championship, and we just discount it all and go, oh, he had no chance. He's in the game. He had a chance. Like, exactly. we don't get to like do the Monday morning.
No, it's not Monday morning quarterback. I believe this all along. It's not like I'm changing my tune. I believe this the entire time with this guy. It's not like I'm changing.
Ridiculous take because he was in the NFC Championship game.
Thank you. Like, so was Mark Sanchez. Get out of here. Next.
And guess what? When he was there, if you're in the game, you have a chance to win. That's like this. And I don't want to make this a basketball thing. It's just like when people do the whole LeBron lost. It's like, yeah, but you have to be in it to lose it. Like, you can't say I have a bad finals record when to get there, I had to win 12 games, right? To get to the NFC Championship, he had to win games. Tom Brady lost in the playoffs. Dak Prescott lost in the playoffs. Matt Stafford did not make the playoffs. Kyler Murray did not make the playoffs. Kirk Cousins lost in the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers did not make the play. Like, so, or he made it. Whatever happened. No, they didn't lose. We knocked them out, right? There are a lot of elite quarterbacks in the NFC, or very good quarterbacks. None of those guys were in the NFC Championship. He was. He was.
Dak, if it wasn't this guy's right, Jamar Bell. If it wasn't for Dak choking in that game, the Cowboys win that game. Like if Trevon
So,
Diggs doesn't
so
drop
that's
that
it. So,
pick,
so why
that's
did
a different game.
Why did San Francisco beat Seattle?
Seattle's a bad team.
No, they're not. They were in the
Really?
playoff.
Yeah.
How are they a bad
They were
team?
in the playoffs.
When that team backed into the playoffs, man, like
Oh my God, man.
Chicago was in the playoffs a couple years ago. That didn't mean they were
So
good.
what you're telling me is when a guy goes out and drops 332 and 3 touchdowns with no picks, it's because it was against a bad team. It wasn't playoffs. A rookie, the last pick in the draft, first game in the playoffs, goes for 332 and 3 touchdowns with no picks. That doesn't matter because we're saying that's a
Good
bad team.
performance, but I don't believe in him. You ain't gonna change my mind. I don't
ridiculous.
believe in the guy.
Wow, but you believe in Tua Tagovailoa. This is unbelievable.
I saw it. You saw it.
You saw it. We just
Yeah.
talked about it. But you taking every performance and saying that's a bad. Like you're acting like it doesn't matter. That's unbelievable to me. That is just unbelievable. Like it's just like
Welcome,
it didn't matter.
welcome to the John Shear experience.
I was getting ready to say,
it's just
Ray,
unbelievable, man.
welcome to John Shear. If
Hey,
you haven't
fell
met
right
him
into
yet,
my
Eric,
appreciate.
you know we've went 15 minutes with no breaks, right?
I know, and we've done 2 topics. So you know what? We're gonna take a quick break. I'm gonna show some love, pay some bills to, first off, and pay some bills to all the shows on the Sideline Sport Network, especially my man Ball Don't Lie. We're gonna play a shout out to the big guard, and we'll be back. Welcome back to the Sports Arena on a Monday night. Yeah, 50 minutes, no breaks. That's what we're going to do. What you can anticipate when we get to Arizona Media Week Radio Row. So, Marcus Shaw, I know you, my boy Ray's, my co-host Ray Lynn's boy. Listen, you want to come speak on Philly's schedule, shoot the brother the link and tell him to come on and speak about it because we can have that conversation if you really want to have that conversation with me. That might be the one and only time I'm seriously going to get on somebody about the schedule because I'm sick and tired of people talking about that. You wanted to have me something.
They did play the NFC East, right?
Wait, hold on. I think he was on your side. He made a comment earlier about people got to chill on Philly's schedule or something like that.
I was gonna say because NFC East was like what all 500 or better, and like so. I mean that's
all right.
That's not exactly
and listen,
a big division.
I should have looked up and read more of the comments, and I do apologize, Marcus, if you were in fact on Philly's side. Okay, thank you, sir. All right. We're going to keep moving because we talked 2 topics tonight, and we are definitely going into overtime tonight. I don't want to keep everybody here, but I want to thank y'all for chiming in and being here with us because, that's what we do. So let's talk about what the teams that are going to be playing in the Super Bowl need. And let's start with Philly. John Shear, in your opinion, what do the Eagles need to do to win?
Yeah, of course. That defensive line, they have to get after Mahomes because – when Tom Brady lost his Super Bowls, when Mahomes lost his Super Bowl, when these quarterbacks lose their Super Bowls, guess what? It's because defense rushes 4 and drops 7. It's exactly what the Giants did both times against Tom Brady, and they were able to beat Tom Brady both times by rushing 4 and getting home to him. That's what the Bucs did to Mahomes. Was they just rushed 4 and they got home and they were able to drop 7 and go play coverage. And so that's what the Eagles have to do, and they do it in an extremely high rate. They can blitz, but they do have to make sure they rush 4, don't blitz Mahomes, and that front 4 really has to do their job. And then the run game has to be good. Jalen Hurts, if I look at Jalen Hurts' stats, which I did, he has not been very good running the football since that Chicago game. That was when he got hurt. The Giants game, which was the week before, he was tremendous, 7 for 77. Great yards per carry average. After that, he's been 3.5 yards per carry, about under 4. Like, that's not Jalen Hurts. That's not the Jalen Hurts we saw all year. So they need Jalen Hurts to be Jalen Hurts. I feel like, and this is just me, I feel like he's still injured, but nobody, they're not really talking about that. I feel like that shoulder's more injured than they let on, because I mean, Jalen Hurts really hadn't been running the ball. He didn't really run the ball in the playoffs. Like, he hasn't been himself. 2 playoff games, he's under 200 yards in both games passing, and then running the ball, he really not running. So, like, he's being timid, and so they need Jalen Hurts to get back to being him. He doesn't have to play Superman, but he's got to be Jalen Hurts. He's got to be willing to run the ball like Mahomes did with the ankle. Jalen Hurts got to be willing to put it all on the line, because you're going to need every weapon you got, and that part of those weapons are Jalen Hurts. So the D-line and Jalen Hurts got to be themselves, and if they are, I think this is, an easy Philly win, because this is reminiscent of what the Bucs did to Mahomes. Get after him, pressure him, and put him into situations he doesn't want to be in. I think that's what Philly's D is going to do, and ultimately it's going to be a long day for the Chiefs.
Ray, what do they need to do?
To piggyback off what John said, again, man, to not to beat a drum, but like I always tell people that the wins and losses, when you put it on just a quarterback, it's kind of an asinine way of judging, right? This is almost shaping up, and I'm a huge Mahomes fan, been talking about him all year. This is shaping up to look really bad for him, because I can count so many times. John mentioned a few of them. He didn't even mention all of them. You look at the last 10 years in football, what happens to quarterbacks who have MVP caliber years, steamroll to the Super Bowl, and then get there against a top-notch defense? What happened when Peyton Manning ran through the league and then faced that Legion of Boom? What happened when Cam Newton ran through the league, then faced that same Denver defense? What happened to Matt Ryan against New England? What happened to Patrick Mahomes against Tampa Bay? Like, we see it all the time, where a quarterback has a great year, he's phenomenal, and then he gets up against a stout defense in the Super Bowl, and they have game planned perfectly for him. If I'm Philly, I shouldn't even say this, somebody might hear it, I would bring pressure from the all game from the right edge, right? Or from the left edge as you're looking at on defense. Did y'all watch the one play where Mahomes had to roll out left and throw the ball off his right foot?
Yep.
How he came back gimping, right?
Mm-hmm.
You roll out right, you throw off your left foot. You roll out to the left, you have to throw the ball off
That's
your
a
right
good
foot
point.
more often than not, right? I'll bring pressure from that side every single time. I'm going to force him to roll out left every time. Oh, we're going to test it. We're going to find out if that ankle is healthy. So, to what they need to do, I think the first thing they need to do is settle down fast. Kansas City's been there, done that. It's their 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years, right? They won't be, the lights won't be too bright for them. They won't be afraid of the moment. The moment won't be big. Like, yes, it's just a normal game, but it is the Super Bowl. But at the end of the day, it is still football. It's still 100 yards on the field. It's still 11 men on each side. Philly has to settle down very fast, right? Because Kansas City, not the type of team you want to play from behind. Like, you don't want to let them get out to an early lead and then they get comfortable in that offense, right? You want it the other way. You want to get ahead on them and then be able to pin your ears back on defense and just let it rip. That's what you have to do. You have to get out early, and then you have to pressure Mahomes early and keep pressure on him. You want to repeat the formula that Tampa Bay did a couple of years ago. That is how you beat them. Keep Mahomes in check. Nobody else matters. Like, somebody said Mahomes and Kelsey. Well, if you keep Mahomes in check, you as a byproduct, you'll keep Kelsey in check as well, right? Make them beat you running the ball.
Listen, it's very simple for my team. I have said one thing the entire season. I've said it tonight. I'm sure it's be consistent. All right. You want to talk about pressuring Patrick Mahomes? Yeah, that's one aspect of it. But the fact of the matter is, we've seen Patrick Mahomes do some pretty wild things. And we're like, where did that come from? So we know he's got a few more tricks up his sleeve. What I'm going to ask Philly to do is simply this. Be the powerhouse team that you are on both sides of the ball. Now, John spoke about Jalen saying that his injury, they're not really speaking about the severity of it. Listen, we all know that defense, Chris Jones is going to try and test Jalen and get to him and see how that shoulder really is. I said it at the beginning of the show tonight when we were talking about Philadelphia. Him and AJ didn't connect. Yes, he had a great catch to Devontae, but what was the reason that team won the game? They ran the ball, defense stood up. That's exactly what needs to happen against the Kansas City Chiefs. Steve Spagnuolo and Andy Reid know Philadelphia very well, whether they coached it or they coached against it. All right, and Patrick Mahomes has proven, yes, John, without Tyreek Hill, he is still the man to beat. So the bottom line is truly this. Philly has to go in, and yes, right now, they're a 2.5 favorite to win this game. To me, that means nothing. All right, that's just the fact that Philly had a better record, I guess you could say. And so far, they are the team that everybody is like, okay, Philly's on that course. But Kansas City is going to be Kansas City. You cannot let Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, even I'll say his name, even though people are going to probably kill me in the comments. You can't let Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Pacheco. Forget about Mahomes and Kelce. It's those other complementary pieces that we talk about here on the sports arena that people won't be thinking about. We know that right now our secondary is solid, except they're going to open up the middle. Well, where does Travis Kelce typically go? In the middle. Where does Patrick Mahomes like to go when he needs to get a first down? In the middle to Travis Kelce. So we've got to bottleneck and contain that. You want to rush the front four and put some pressure on Mahomes and make him roll to his left, roll to his right. I don't care which way he goes. But you have to make sure that those complementary pieces don't make a statement. Our focus can't be on two guys. It has to be on the entire level. And on the offensive side of the ball for Philadelphia, let me be very clear. Jalen Hurts, you got a shoulder, you got a game. Go figure it out. All right, because there is no tomorrow. February 13th right now doesn't exist in your brain. February 12th, you need to find Dallas Goedert, you need to find Quez Watkins, you need to find Devontae Smith, and you damn sure better find A.J. Brown because those guys came to this team or were a part of this team for this moment. That is the moment. You talk about the bright lights settling down and doing all that. Philly's not used to that. I'm going to be very real with y'all. We ain't used to settling down, okay? We are going to run the ball down your throat. And if given the opportunity, whether it is Jalen, Boston, Kenneth, or even Miles, we're going to push until you try to hurt us. We're going to keep going. See, you have to understand something. Pushing through them brick walls, that's what we're used to doing. That's what we're accustomed to doing. So I truly hope that Chris Jones and the entire Kansas City defense is ready to get knocked over. Because I guarantee you this, whether it is Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Javon Hargrave, Hassan Reddick, and Ndamukong Suh, it doesn't matter. Patrick is going to be tested. Let's flip it really quick. What do the Chiefs need to do to win?
It's simple. Run the ball. Philly's one and only Achilles heel, because they seem to have no problems. They've seemed to have no Achilles heel. The one Achilles heel, it's stopping the run. They've struggled with stopping the run. Teams have tried to run on them. We've seen that like in that Colts game, that was their Achilles heel in that one. Like, we've seen teams be able to run the football on them. Now, they did go out and get Suh. That was one of the reasons they wanted to stop the run more. But that's the problem that they have. Kansas City's got to be patient. They got to stick with the run. They can't give up on it. I feel like they're going to, because they got Mahomes, and they're like, man, we got to pass the ball and we got to put up points. But if they can stick to the run, if they can stick to Pacheco and McKinnon and make sure they continually run the ball, I think that they can wear down that Philly defensive line, and then they can go for the big plays. That's the only way I can see Kansas City winning, is doing what the Colts tried to do, almost pulled off against the Eagles. But you saw the formula against the Eagles is run the ball at the teeth of that defense. Because, I mean, you're not going to pass on them. Like, let's be real. Like, that secondary, you're just not passing on that secondary. It just ain't happening. The secondary is too damn good to pass on. So you got to be able to run the football at them and then set it up with play action and then hit the crossing route, hit the deep route. Like, that's what you got to do if you're the Chiefs. But if you're not patient and you pass the ball 40 times and you run the ball 13, you're going to find yourself losing by double digits.
I don't even know where we be getting this information from. The Philadelphia Eagles had the 9th best run defense in the league.
Right,
Like, I don't.
but we saw the formula whenever they struggled in games. Like, you go back and watch that Colts game. The formula, because I watched that game, the formula was to run it at the teeth of that defense and to continually run at the teeth of that defense. That is the weakness of the Philadelphia Eagles. That's why they went out and got Ndamukong Suh, is because they were concerned about their run defense. Because we know what the pass defense is, but the run defense was the problem, or they thought it was a problem. So they went out and got guys to try and shore it up. But there's still some problems there. Like, don't get it wrong, right? Like, there still are problems there that you can exploit.
I actually think the exact opposite as far as what the Chiefs need to do to win. I saw some odd stats about Philly. They pressure the quarterback about as good as anybody, like top 5 in pressures. They don't blitz a whole lot, like John was saying, rushing for. Actually, they blitz the second least in the whole league, right? So they don't blitz a lot. They rush for, and they get a bunch of pressures. They get a bunch of hurries. But you know what they don't do? They don't sack the quarterback a whole lot. They had the second least amount of sacks in the whole NFL. That's problematic when you playing a guy like Mahomes.
What?
Right? Yeah.
They had didn't they have 70 some sacks?
It's 76.
Go look at it. Yeah, make sure I'm not tripping.
I believe
What
we had
y'all-
78.
Yeah, they had 70 plus sacks.
Am I looking at the wrong thing? That would help.
Maybe.
That would explain it. Yeah, that would explain a lot of stuff in what I'm looking at. Right.
It's okay,
Yeah, I'm
bro.
tripping altogether. I'm actually no, my spring. Yeah, they led the league in sacks actually. Like I'm
It's
looking
okay.
at. I don't know how it flipped to last year. It flipped to last year, right?
Okay.
So the Chiefs have to be the Chiefs, right? Like they're not gonna get to the Super Bowl and all of a sudden change their game plan. It's not gonna be, oh, well, this team's weakness is here, so we're gonna try to run against them. No, they have to be themselves. Like they're gonna go out, they're gonna have play designs, they're gonna study film, and they're gonna find a way for Mahomes to get the ball to his weapons. Like they just literally have to be themselves. Which team can enforce their will? Who can impose their will? I don't think the Chiefs win this game by going away from what got them there. You don't, have a guy like Mahomes get you where you're at and then all of a sudden go, we're going to try to win this game by exploiting this team's weakness. No, we're going to win this game by playing to our strengths, right? People thought it was going to be a big deal when Tyreek Hill was gone, and now we have guys like Valdes-Scantling, Kadarius Toney, Juju Smith, Travis Kelce. Get the ball to your weapons, do what you do, and make it a shootout, right? Same thing I said about like Philly. I don't think Philly's the team you want to go against and let them pin their ears back on defense, right? You don't want to let that team get up 2 scores and now they know you have to pass. Keep them honest, run a few, have a few runs in there, run some screens. They're a team that uses the screen kind of like New Orleans used to do, right? Use a lot of short passes to substitute the run game. So you do that to keep the defense honest, but at the end of the day, this game is going to rest on Mahomes' arm. It's just that simple, right? And I believe at some point in this game, Kansas City's offense is going to turn into what LA's offense turned into in the Super Bowl last year. Like, y'all remember at one point there were drives where it was like they're going to throw it to Cooper Kupp every single play. They're going to reach a point where it's going to be like, we're going to throw it to Travis Kelce. Stop it. So that's what they have to do, man. They have to be themselves. Mahomes has to be great, and they'll be fine.
All right. I'm not going to tell Kansas City what they need to do because they're going against my team. So I'm not giving y'all a secret sauce. You heard it from John. You heard it from Ray. Figure it out. But let's talk about Patrick Mahomes. Let's have a conversation about this man, because think about it like this. Since the man has started in the NFL, his basement has been the AFC Championship game. Pencil him in for 11, 12, 13 wins and an AFC Championship game, figuring number 1 or number 2 in the entire AFC, which means in order to get to the Super Bowl, you either got to go to Arrowhead or face Patrick Mahomes in your home stadium. Let that marinate for a minute. However, I know the talk today, especially today, has been he has to win this game. He has to win this game, or else we're going to start talking about Patrick Mahomes and having a different conversation. So let me ask you 2 gentlemen, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about Patrick Mahomes, where he's at right now, and if he doesn't win against the Philadelphia Eagles in Arizona, what does that say about him? What does it say about him? I want to talk about the Chiefs. What does that say about him?
Nothing. Like, I think fans, I'll say how fortunate Brady was that people get kind of spoiled by that and think that this thing is just easy, right? Like, it's like, oh, this guy didn't win any Super Bowls and this guy only has this many. Well, let's start with the fact there's 32 NFL teams, right? And can't but one person win. So we talking about a league with the likes of Tom Brady still playing, Aaron Rodgers still playing, Stafford just won one last year, Russell Wilson has won one, he's still playing, Matt Ryan's in the Super Bowl, he's still playing, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. What's the kid name in LA? Can't think of his name right now. Justin Herbert. John would throw his quarterback in that conversation. Tua Tagovailoa, Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback, right? So you got all these very, very talented guys. And guess what? At the end of the year, only one is going to hoist that trophy. So it's like every guy that doesn't win is like this super indictment on him. Case in point, like I said last year, when Josh Allen and Mahomes played, one of those guys had to lose. And it boiled down to who was going to get the ball. Had Mahomes lost that game, the media would have talked crazy about him. It's like, what did he do wrong? We saw what Mahomes did when he got the ball, right? Had the coin flip went the other way, if we could have a revisionist history and go back in time and then the Bills won, how could we possibly look at him any less? We saw what he did when he had the ball. We know what he's capable of. Sometimes it just don't bounce your way. You can't win every single game. For a guy's basement to be the AFC Championship, for a guy to be in his third Super Bowl in 4 years, having one of them, has a league MVP, about to win a second one, has a Super Bowl MVP, that man got a Hall of Fame career already, and he's one of the best arm talents we've ever seen, and he does some amazing things with the football. And it's not like it's just some showboat, and he does it and he wins games. So if he doesn't win this Super Bowl, people are going to start the conversations, oh, he's going to be another Aaron Rodgers. Well, that's not a bad place to be. Aaron Rodgers is one of the greatest to ever do it. Just didn't win a whole lot of Super Bowls. Peyton Manning ain't got but two. John Elway ain't got but two. Marino never won one, right? Guys with lesser talent have won more. Like Ben Roethlisberger's not better than Aaron Rodgers because he got 2 Super Bowls. Troy Aikman's not better than a guy like Peyton Manning because he got 3. Eli's not better than Dan Marino because he got 2, right? You just have to be on a good team and in a good situation. Fortunately, Patrick Mahomes is, but if he gets to the Super Bowl, what would I be saying about your team, Eric, if I go, oh, Patrick Mahomes didn't do what he's supposed to do because he didn't win? No, he lost to a good team. Like, your team is a good team. So, again, somebody has to lose a game. If Jalen Hurts lose, I'm not going to look at him no less. If Mahomes lose, if Mahomes was getting to big games and just played like trash, then we'd have a conversation. But he shows up and shows out. Sometimes they go your way, sometimes they don't. So to be in his third Super Bowl in 4 years and to every year as a starter be in the AFC Championship and doing what he's doing, can't nobody say nothing about him besides he's the best quarterback in the game. Win or lose this game. Like, my opinion won't change of him. Only thing he can do is elevate his stature after this game.
John, how do you feel?
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I mean, I think 1 and 2 is definitely looks bad. I mean, it's not gonna take him out of the Hall of Fame if he ends up there one day. But whenever you talk about greatest of all time and you tack on a 1 and 2 record,
A 1 and 2. What do you mean 1 and 2 record?
like in the Super Bowl. In a Super Bowl.
So I want to make sure I understand this. Same thing as the LeBron effect. You have to win at the very least 2 games to get there. So if you lose in the Super Bowl, you went 2-1 in the playoffs that year, at least. Unless you played a wild card game, you went 3-1.
It's not a fair science, but it's just the way it is. When you have these conversations, you have to factor in if he lost twice, that's 2 times he did not get the job done.
Hey, John, real quick. What do we say about John Elway? That he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. That he's a Super Bowl MVP. That he won 2 Super Bowls. And he won them on his way out the door. You know, most people don't remember he lost 3 or 4 before that. Most people don't remember that. They just remember he finally won. People don't remember Peyton lost his first one. Peyton's 2-2 in the Super Bowl, correct?
Yep, I remember.
Right?
Well,
right?
I mean, he did beat Rex Grossman, and he did, hobble his way to a championship with his defense carrying.
You're speaking to my point. Peyton Manning won his second Super Bowl, and you could have done it. That's how awful he was, right?
That's why I only give him 1 Super Bowl.
But the record books say that Peyton Manning is a 2-time Super Bowl champion, right? So when you go, 1 and 2 doesn't look good, would it have been so let's just say Patrick Mahomes is 1 and 2 if he loses this, right? Would it have been better for his career legacy to have lost in the AFC Championship and be 1-0 in the Super Bowl? How stupid is that?
I'm just saying, like, if you're talking about great, like when, and that conversation's going to come up when he retires at some point. I don't know what his record's going to be, but years down the road, when you have a conversation at work or whatever, or with one of us, and you say, "Is Mahomes the greatest?" If his record finishes 1-2, I mean, that's going to be a knock against him for trying to be the greatest or one of the greatest. Like, that's going to be something where you can put in the cons side because you have the pros and you have the cons. That's definitely going to go in the cons side and take away points when you try and make your case of, is he the greatest? Like, that's going to take points away from him. And that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying like he's not necessarily, I'm not saying he's not going to be in the Hall of Fame because he probably will. But when you have that conversation one day, that's going to come up, and that will be a knock on him, and that'll go in the comments.
I just like it's a stupid knock.
It's not fair, but it's just how it goes.
But if you can't say it's not fair and then agree with it, like
it's just how it is.
Yeah, but we as sports analysts like shouldn't get up on our platform and then say, well, this is what everybody else says, so I'm gonna say it too. Like, no, I'm not gonna agree with it just because that's what everybody else does. Like I've done a blog on this, and every time I talk Super Bowls, every time I talk about quarterbacks winning and that being a judge of their greatness, I have to bring this up. I did a research over the last 40 years. I went back to when I was born. I went back to 1980, and I did a sample. I did this in 2020 or 21, something like that. I did a sample size of 40 years, and I looked at the average ranking of a defense that won the Super Bowl. Do you know what the average ranking of the Super Bowl winning team's defense was?
Top 10.
Number 4 in the league. Number 4.
I was gonna say 3, but okay.
Right? The average
Brady basically every year had that when with the Patriots.
That's kind of my point. This blog that I did was comparing Joe Montana, Brady, and Peyton Manning. Go look at when Montana was winning in the 80s. San Francisco always had a top 6, top 7 defense, right? Brady always had a top 10 defense. And every year he won, it was top 10. And three or four of those Super Bowls, it was top 5, right? Out of those 40 years, I think 25 or 26 of them, the defense was top 5, like 1, 2, 3, or something like that. And then the other times it was, another however many times it was top 10. I think it was 30 something. And only 3 or 4 times out of those 40 years, I'm trying to remember.
I know your point.
Right?
Yeah,
it was a very low number, right? Do you know what the Chiefs defense has been in Mahomes' 5 years as starters? 24th, 7th, 10th, 8th, and this year 16th, right? He's never had a top 5 defense. So for him to even be there is a testament that they're winning on his greatness.
So he's had top 10 3 times? Is that
twice.
What you said?
No, I said 24th. Okay, yeah, 10th. 24th, okay. 7th, 10th, 8th, and 16th.
Okay, so 3 top 10s. But still, like you said, 2 of them weren't top 10, right?
Right, and then this year, the 16, and you know what's funny? Both times he lost in the AFC Championship was in overtime. He ain't never just got the brakes beat off him with a 24th ranked defense, with a 16th ranked defense this year, right?
The only time he got the brakes beat off him was the Tampa Super Bowl, but that was more the offensive line was just.
I'm just simply saying, and when I did those numbers, right? You know what Brady's average ranking defense in his career was like 6th or 7th.
Yeah.
Right. And Joe Montana's was 4 or 5 throughout his career. Peyton Manning's was like 15th. The average ranking defense he played.
Don't go back and look at Dan Marino's average rank of his defense because it wasn't very good.
It wasn't very good, right? Like, so I'm simply saying, like, when we look at a quarterback and go, if he doesn't win, this affects his legacy. Well, like, let's talk about the fact that maybe he shouldn't be there. Right, like with the defense he had this year, and granted, they stepped up when they needed to, especially here against Cincinnati, which again speaks to the point. The defense had to step up. If they had to go out and score 40 last game, they wasn't going to do it. Nope. They won that game because the defense stepped up. Mahomes was great, but they kept that Bengals offense in check. So it's like so much more that going to winning that I'm not gonna like. If you play great and you win, then it absolutely elevates your legacy. But when you lose and it wasn't totally on you, and you didn't go out and go 12 for 35, like. I can't,
But what do we always say, Ray? What do we always say? Quarterback gets all the praise. Quarterback also gets all the blame, even though he is on the field.
That's what everybody else says.
Right. Yeah, yes, exactly. That is, let me be very clear, ladies and gentlemen. That is not what the Sports Reporter Without Pay says. That is what everybody else says. And I happen to fall into that category, as sometimes I do. We give the quarterback all the praise. We also give them all the blame. And because we put it on them and say, go out and win us the game. You're the leader. You should be the one to do it. So, listen, there's so much more we could dive into, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this because, like I said, in a week's time, the 3 of us, along with Mike Carrottenuto and many more members of the Sideline Sports Network, are going to be in Arizona. We are going to be on Radio Row. you are going to get shows like this more so than you can handle. So people,
you're gonna
as I
get-
like to say,
You're going to get athlete after athlete, Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer. You're going to get the works from us.
as I like to say, get your popcorn ready, because if you thought what Mike Caratanudo, Megan Price, JB Ellis, Ty Ray the Big Guard, and myself did at the National Scouting Combine when the four of us were together, just imagine for the first time ever when you have John Shear, the sports reporter without pay, and the co-host of the Sports Arena, Ray Lynn, Mike Caratanudo, and me live. The four of us together for the first time. I can't even tell you what that's going to be like, except to say, please get ready,
And Eric,
because it's going to be a mess.
and we'll be on Radio Row, but best believe, like, I ain't afraid to throw down with you like we are now in person. Like, I ain't afraid just because we on Radio Row. Just don't mean I'm not afraid to throw down with that guy
It's
down there.
one thing to
you
have
up
to
there
deal
or
with
Mike.
John in Las
I'm not
Vegas at
afraid.
the NFL draft and have John be a little pit bull. I can honestly say I don't fear a lot of men. I don't. That's just who I am. I done been through the mud, so I don't. But I already know 5 days of John Shear doing the Sports Arena. Lord have mercy. Anyhow, we gonna get out of here. Thank you to everybody, and I do mean everybody in the comments. To my man Will Vogel, man, we're not doing score predictions. You're gonna have to wait and check us out when we are in Arizona, because we're not breaking that down yet. So to all of your boys chiming in the comments, Ray, to
Thank you.
Cortland, to Bamir, excuse me if I said your name wrong. Of course, my man Playmaker, Marcus Shaw, Jamar Bell, my man Denzel. I mean, everybody. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. And we will see you in exactly 1 week in Arizona. The Sports Arena, we are out, y'all. Have a blessed night, and we will talk to y'all soon.